When you live a life of a man who possibly died by some other man's hands, you are taking a legacy that could kill you. I don't know who told people that fast food was okay.
Well, you think the pharmaceutical companies are targeting us and making our food destructive against us?
They were not meant to hand out all these drugs. They capitalize off of our ignorance. How many people have we lost to GMOs? How many people have died by default?
You think if Dr. Sebi never existed, that people would still eat sea moss?
We can talk about pork, we can talk about liquor, we can talk about sugar, we can talk about this. But you really need to know what's going on in your blood system. You need to go get tested for all of your allergies. The lack of education on food is a serious thing.
Introducing Kellie Bowman, the daughter of legendary icon Dr. Sebi, the healer who redefined health and inspired a global movement.
Kelli is carrying his legacy to new heights through Sebi's daughters, merging ancient wisdom with modern wellness to empower a new generation.
Did y'all ever do shrooms together?
You have to defend your peace, and your peace has to do with your food.
What does a person's refrigerator say about them?
You need to choke the life out of everything that is causing you dis-ease. And if you don't know how to do that, it's time to fast. Fast from your negativity. But watch the colors that you wear when you're going through a healing.
You gave birth standing up. How do you make that decision to do it again after going through that one? Do successful lonely women eat more food?
If you gonna eat junk, I don't expect you to say anything holy to me.
How fat we talking?
Your estrogen raises as a man, you can get breast cancer. If you are going to abuse yourself, you are definitely going to abuse me.
Are you a good parent if your child is fat?
Children don't need detoxing. Children need a diet of love. And just so we're clear, chicken is a devil. Oh my goodness, what they did to that poor bird.
I would love to see the vegan community in the gym more. They think they can eat their way into manhood and think that they better. No.
Stop expecting the best when you're putting the worst in. Junk in, junk out.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the guy. The 19 Keys. The execution of knowledge is power. Teach you how to be a guy.
Peace, family. Thank you for watching High-Level Conversations. In order to continue to make these happen and go number one, we need your support. We need you to like, we need you to share, and we definitely need to make sure that you subscribe. And please leave a 5-star review. Some of the best reviews will actually win some products. If you have a business, you have a product, you have a service, and you want to reach millions of people, just like yourself that watch High-Level Conversations, we have different packages that you can come in and help sponsor episodes so we can take things to the highest level. If this is an exciting offer for you, then go to 19keys.com/HLC so that you can join the high level team. I'm 19 Keys, and as always, stay high level. We live in an era where people are disconnected from who they are. And that disconnection sends you on the wrong path. When you don't know who you are, you don't know what to eat. You don't know what to think. You don't know how to think. You don't know why you do things. I believe this disconnection of mind and body is the great imbalance of our generation that is destroying us from the inside with our own habits. Today, the sister that I have is somebody who derives from a family whose lineage is getting us connected to customize the way that we eat, the way that we live based on who we are. I look at her and I see a healer of somebody that is more so soulful, somebody that takes an unconventional approach in making sure that mindfulness, right, and wellness are seen as one thing that can help people navigate the scars that keep them sick. As I travel around the world and I see how other cultures are doing, and where it's not over westernized and we have a standard American diet which leaves everybody sad, depressed, lonely, insecure, fearful. We're literally eating against our DNA, destroying our ability to have the gifts to know who we are. There's one healer that stands amongst all during this particular era, whose lineage is giant. And that will be, of course, the world-renowned Dr. Sebi. When I first heard about Dr. Sebi, I deep dived into his information. I deep dived into his work because I wanted to know who he was. And all his information felt fresh. It felt new. It felt like I was in a classroom where I was learning. I tried some of his regimens, right? I wanted to see how I felt. And ever since then, I had the great esteem, pleasure, and opportunity of meeting many people from his family. Today is another one of those pleasures where I feel like it's a piece of the puzzle that we need. By having more conversations around healing, we can get to the foundation of wealth. We can get to the foundation of real power. As we enter into the age of Aquarius and we go into a whole new dimension, we have to make sure that our bodies are prepared for this next phase of reality in life. Otherwise, as things speed up, if we slow down, we get left behind. But if we speed up and we have those God bodies, then we're right on time. The healing starts in the mind. And we're about to have a conversation with Kellie Bowman just about how do we get our mindfulness together? How do we get our love together? And how do we translate that to having a healthier life?
As a nurturer, as a woman, I think I like to know what it is that you're feeling, what your energy is. And my goal is always to support that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I feel it, it's going to be what it needs to be, but it's going to be with the blessing of me nurturing in that way, because I really like to come through in a way because I adore my position as a woman. I love being a woman. I understand my assignment. So it's very easy for me to move and navigate because I listen.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised to listen very well. And it's not the words that you say to me right now that I hear. It's other things that I hear with my heart.
I think that's powerful. I actually want to start right there. I do. Because I think when you talk about the healing conversation, first of all, listening can help heal someone.
Yeah.
Right? Most of therapy is just having someone to listen to you.
Yes.
Right? Talk therapy, that is. And it's more so allowing yourself to release.
Yeah.
Right? Because we hold on to so much. And once that buildup gets too much, right, our body gets sick.
Yeah.
Because it needs chambers to release all of this toxicity that we build up. And so in a society now where I feel like there's way more talking than there is listening.
There it is.
And I mean like active listening, soul listening, spirit listening. There's not a deep foundation of like, as our ancestors can hear the wind, you know what I'm saying? Can listen to the cosmos, right? They listen with all of their senses and even beyond the five. That's a completely different reality than scrolling, right? Than listening for your own intentions versus to actually understand. But what you said is similar to the way I like to think is that it's not what's said, it's the void, and then it's how it's felt, right? And I think context is greatly lost in today's time because number one, people are all individuals living in their own pods of world. So words mean something different to everybody. For me, I always knew how to understand the context that was missing, right? The void, the empty space, right? I understand what's being said, what's not being said. And that gift, if you will, only comes to people when they vibrate high. When you're in a low vibration, you only actually have energy for yourself.
For self.
And the energy you have is for your lowest self. It's like when you're sick, you can't help nobody else. But most people don't realize they're sick. So when they're listening to people, you're only thinking about what is going to be intentional to help you, right? Not how you adding to the collective whatsoever. But going back to our disconnect with the planet itself, right? I think that that's where we became greatly lost as a people, right? We hear people talk about climate change and things of that nature. That's not something that I would say the diaspora has any conversations about. And I understand it because the conversations are being held in a very political sense almost. But when you take us back to when we were connected to the land, we would always predict the downfall of the earth based on man being too in tune with technology and losing that alignment with nature. So we'd talk about when there'd be a time where the planet would heat up, right? It'd be a time where we would destroy the forest, right? It's like you go look at the fight that they have in the Amazon to try to keep nature, right? It's like our disconnect from the earth was our first level of sickness, right? Putting on our plastic shoes and walking above and not being grounded, right? Then not being outside at the proper times when the sun was coming out. If we don't have that nature within us, then it's not much that we can do beyond that because we don't have enough energy to love ourselves and love nobody else. So when you say that you're a listener, you know, having that means that you have to be in a place where you can listen, right? It's almost a level of wealth that you have to obtain.
And I don't negotiate that
Mm.
at all. I think as you grow up, you got to have some convictions. And I don't think we teach enough of that to our children. Having convictions is very important. And there are things that I do not negotiate, and that is my peace. And what I define my peace to be is up to me. And so I navigate that appropriately for Kelly.
Yes.
So as I do that, it allows me all the space I need for you, for him, for anybody. Because I control that. But you got to want to. It is a want.
Do you think that people are ready? And most of the time when you meet people, do you feel like they're in a place where they can receive peace?
Absolutely not. They're sick. You know, and that's why it takes more listeners to really understand where people are. Like you were saying, when we look at the state of the world today, I mean, one of the biggest things that hurt my feelings is, you know, you grow up in LA and, you know, I remember before there was Whole Foods, there was Mrs. Gooch's. And I remember when we would go to Mrs. Gooch's and check out that store and see what they had. And it wasn't a problem to get organic because that's all there was. There was no fight between GMO and organic. And that is when I knew we were in trouble. That hurt my feelings. How many people have we lost to GMOs? How many people have died by default?
When I grew up, I remember seeing so many of my great aunts that passed away from cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure and all these issues. And it was almost not even a question. It was just normal. Now, I grew up in a household, of course, we had how to eat to live. So we had a level of awareness to what was going on, but you realize that I always thought of it like we lived in this bubble and then there was everybody else and they lived in the world, right? And so they couldn't even see what the problem was. And if you speak to them of that problem, they say, or the solution to that problem, they couldn't hear you at all because they were rejected of saying that that's y'all, this is us. We want our bacon.
Basically.
We want our bacon. We don't care if it's killing us. Y'all go on with that Muslim talk, whatever it is. And the truth was always rejected and made fun of. But then people will want you to be there crying and grieving for not listening. And I think that we have a world where people think that they can have both.
Agreed. That's a very selfish, low-level thinking. That's a very selfish, like you said, that's the lowest vibration. Look at how low they took it. Because me and you have a shared experience in childhood. Our classroom was fully awake at home. That's what's missing. Those fully awake conversations at home. Because we had something that I thought most people had. Like I said, they didn't have that. We had something special. We didn't know it was unique. We thought all kids, I'm sure you thought, well, they know what I know. Absolutely not. And so when we look at things today, there is no wonder when you showed up on the scene why you saw things the way you saw them, because you were already groomed. And the grooming of our children is so important. The grooming. I like your mother.
Thank you.
We can sit here all day and talk about your mother because I know the job she did. That is my goal. I have children of my own, but that's what happened for me because the garden was my classroom. And now I get out here and I'm figuring that everybody acts and behaves in this way. Absolutely not. And if we check behavior right now, it's very sick.
Yeah.
The low level of thinking right now is so sick. We are all sick. What do you do? And see, life is a doing word. Have we forgot about that? Loving is a doing word. Yeah.
So where does the healing start? We live in a society that is obviously sick, right? And I think part of it is because, well, there's a lot of it, right? But one of the things that I noticed is that we're trying to cope with so many shifts and changes that is happening, right? We are generations that are existing in a time where essentially we have full awareness, right? And we're trying to even cope with being conscious. It's like when you know a problem, how are you going to deal with it? In a healthy way or in a negative way? And most people have negative coping habits, right? They go through a trauma and they try to eat themselves through that trauma. They're lonely and they try to eat themselves out of that loneliness. They seeking stimulation, right? Utilizing food, and they don't have peace in the environment. I just came from Japan and I went to Okinawa, right? The blue zone, the land of the immortals, where people live past 100. And there was such a peace and a serenity that was in the air, right? And there's almost saying that how can you expect the people, right, to eat peacefully, right, to exist peacefully, to heal peacefully if the environment isn't? Right now, we can curate our own environments, but that means that we have to go to war for our peace. There's a friction.
There it is.
Right? So where does the healing start?
That's it right there. You cannot negotiate your peace. You have to defend your peace, and your peace has to do with your food. You know, I said before in a couple of interviews in different ways, if you are not eating peacefully, you are not thinking peacefully. It starts at home. And if you don't know how to do that, it's time to fast. You need to fast from your negativity. You need to fast from all those things that keep you. You have to fast this out. You need to choke the life out of everything that is causing you dis-ease. Sometimes it's just stop it and let be. A lot of us don't know what to do. Okay, so a lot of people know that I'm a nurse. I'm a naturalist. And then I went to nursing school because I didn't understand what Poppy was telling me, all these doctors and what they were saying. So you sit someone in a room and you let them sit in there with their diagnosis by themselves and you walk out the room. How do you think they feel being in that room by themselves? It's the most, I think, the torture they feel. By the time you walk in, if you take their blood pressure, it's sky high. You've left them with themselves. But see, when they walked in there, they didn't know what was wrong with them. And there is the problem. Therein lies the problem. If you don't know yourself, how do you expect this doctor to know you? He's going to slide you some pills because you didn't do your job. So knowing yourself, when are we going to get back to that? I think it's important that we really just look at the scale of the way things are going. When are you going to participate? That's my question. We have to participate. We need to keep participating. I'm here because you participate. I only respond to participation. I enjoy participation because then that brings change. We all want change. We all want to witness something great. But you know what? Looking at ourselves individually, we witness what good things we've done in our lives by how we are living. Our behavior says a lot. I'm so interested in people and their behaviors. You can tell me anything you want, but your behavior tells me everything about who you are. If I really want to know you, I'll look in your cabinets because that's really going to tell me who you are. And just so we're clear, chicken is the devil.
Chicken is the devil.
Yeah.
Why is chicken the devil?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. What they did to that poor bird.
The fat hormone bird.
Oh, my goodness.
Chicken on demon time, huh?
You know what? I'm going to forget these cameras are here in a few minutes because I love talking to you. It felt like the first time we had a conversation didn't feel like our first.
Yes.
Did it feel like that to you?
You have a very familiar spirit.
Oh, my goodness.
You're a person that starts in the middle of the conversation.
I don't like to play games because I don't have time. I was raised with two adults who constantly told me, I don't have time to keep talking to you. And that told me, something about me. Don't waste it. And who am I to be wasting it? Okay, so my behaviors need to become a little bit more humble. My character gets stronger by my failures, funny enough, and my challenges and my successes. So I think wasting time is a problem. I think, like I said again, going inward, that's something that has happened from the beginning. Learning how to go inward. And sometimes if you don't know how to start, sit in that room by yourself
Mm.
Sit in that room and find out some things by yourself. Just sit there. It'll come. You don't have the distraction of nothing but you. Only you, naked and alone. That's who you really are. That's where you start.
So, back to these chickens.
All right, come on back.
Chickens coming home to roost. For all my chicken lovers out there, somebody right now about to go slide to Popeyes or go get them some fresh chicken that they about to cook up real quick. They might boil it. They might fry it. You know, they definitely go season it right if they look like us. Now, they've been eating chickens their whole life. I seen a brother on Instagram and he frying up bears, chickens, snakes, sharks. People going crazy with the food that they eat, right? What's the issue with eating these meats? What's the problem with the chickens?
You know, I say it, but it's a bigger picture, and I always use chicken. But because I feel that chicken has been the one constant, the constant devil that nobody sees. We can talk about pork, we can talk about liquor, we can talk about sugar, we can talk about this, we can talk about Doritos, we can talk about whatever is out there that people talk about. But we always miss that chicken. But just like you, we were meant to see things that other people don't see. You said something earlier about, you know, our message was unpopular in the 70s. I was there. I don't think you were there yet.
No, I wasn't there.
It's okay, I'll tell you about it. But in the 70s, our message wasn't very popular. And so growing up, watching people call my father all sort of names, that built a lot of courage. That built a lot of confidence in him and his children, built a lot of character. But what I see today and how people have gone along with their diets, they miss that chicken. You miss that very devil. You love him so much. It's your food, boo. And see, I really believe our relationship with our food is outside of ourselves, but I didn't get that chance to feel that. My food showed me how much my father loved me and how much I love me. If I keep sticking that gun in my mouth, that chicken, what do I expect? Stop expecting the best when you're putting the worst in. Junk in, junk out.
Do you think it's the fact, because when I travel abroad, I'm a little more lenient on my food choices because
and you can be.
Yes, because there's real food, there's natural food.
Yes, I agree.
You know, less chemicals within the food, right?
Agreed.
The restrictions are completely different. A lot of the things that are illegal in the US, right, is completely different outside. Or that are illegal outside the US are completely legal out here, which is why there's a so-called war going on in the government right now that Americans are so sick that the very instruments that was put in place that was supposed to protect the American people have completely sold out to capitalism, right? To where they sell out the interests of the people for profits. So now we have one of the sickest nations in the world. So a person may be eating a chicken and may be offended by the fact that you said something against it, but have you actually studied what's in the food? Have you looked at the farm, right? And do you understand how they plump the chicken, how they water plump it, how they throw in the antibiotics that exist in there and the different chemicals and the coloring and the flavorings, all the number one keep you addicted to it, right? They just put out a report that like chicken is still the number one food that people eat, right? The number one, like we eat so much chicken in the US, it's crazy. So when we think about that, now we have to think about what is in it. And then that's what we really eat, right? Because food is really just a carrier for what we're trying to get out of it. Or we're trying to get out the substance, the minerals, the vitamins, right? So when you're eating any food, you have to ask, what is it carrying, right? Is it carrying something that's good for your DNA, right? Or is it carrying something that is negative for it, right? And most of us eat against our DNA.
There we go.
I think that everybody should be taking at this point, tests to see what they're allergic to, right? To see what food groups that they should and shouldn't eat, because it could be the very thing that you love the most, right? That you having an adverse reaction to, and you're not knowing why you continue to stay in irritable moods and things of that nature, right? Or it's why you get sick in certain times. Because now we're going into the winter time and we're completely out of harmony with the cycles of the earth. Meaning that we're not spending more time in the sun because there's less sun, number one. and then we're not supplementing that in our food choices
At all.
so that we can still stay at that high vibrational state, because it's actually more important that you pay attention to it during the fall and the winter time. So when you become out of harmony with those cycles, you're supposed to get sick because your body is letting you know, I need you to reverse course.
There we are. Course correction.
Yes.
It is time. But can they hear that?
Mm.
That's why we keep talking. We have to continue talking, because that kind of conversation is not in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation, their food sources is outside of them. They have not brought it close. But every time, what I'm hearing you say is that we are failing ourselves.
Mm.
And we know it. And we just don't want to talk about it. Every time I have a customer or someone talk to me about their diet, I have more Black women with fibroids, and now different cancers are showing up younger. It's that demon you didn't see coming.
Mm.
It's that demon you wasn't looking for. That very thing that you thought was your friend. That very situation that you didn't pay attention to. Because that hand-to-mouth coordination has just been routine and automatic. And I really think we need to get back to that conversation, because again, and we need to open it up. For young people, they're so open. You know, nobody wants to end up in one of them hospitals. As a nurse, I don't want to see nobody in there.
Mm-hmm.
You have an emergency, I get it. But that's what they were meant for in the beginning. They were not meant to hand out all these drugs the way they were. But now that we've gotten to that point to where they do,
Mm-hmm.
because they see that we have a lack of knowledge about our own diet, they capitalize off of our ignorance.
How do you deal with the fact that you come from a holistic background, but you have a career, right, that is also where you have to take a Hippocratic oath? I believe, as far as you being a nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with, you wanting, or do you have that freedom to be able to give people the things that you suggest versus the things that your job or your traditional training tells you that you should suggest to a patient?
That training came because I didn't understand the language. When I would sit next to my father and he would talk to someone about their cancer, I wanted to hear that language. In order to help someone, you got to know the language.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go behind enemy lines sometimes to hear what's going on. It was never meant for me to do any more than I've already done, to bring it into the communities to understand the language. Because the language of health was not being transferred.
Mm-hmm.
They would get sick, they'd grab the pills from the doctors, but they quite didn't understand anything else. They didn't understand what to eat because that's not being taught there. You're given a pyramid that is so wrong, of this food pyramid. And you learn it also in elementary, but that's all you get. And then you're sent out into the world to live your life. So that constant going to the hospital, I wanted to know more about it. How can you say you love your community if you're not finding out what's in it? So that's my piece. That's my ministry. I wanted to be able to bring that back and say, I understand you. I hear your hurt and I hear what you've been told. But that very pill in natural form is this.
Mm-hmm.
Now make a decision.
So when you have a woman that is obese and she comes to you and she has fibroids, what is your suggested path for her to get rid of that?
The first thing I do is take that sister's hands and tell her, I want you to forgive yourself, because it's going to start in the head before it even gets to the heart and the mouth. We got some talking to do. So most times I like to keep talking to them about what is their goal here. Do you see yourself with children, long life, longevity, happiness? Do you see those things? Do you want to be happy? Do you want change out of your life? Because see, that's the driving force of what we're going to do together.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes that inciting that fire in a young woman who's been told that, oh, well, I get fibroids. My mama had fibroids. Everybody in the world has fibroids. So it's just going to be that way for me.
What are fibroids exactly?
Fibroids are benign tumors that grow inside of a woman because she is a life giver.
Mm-hmm.
So when her hormones are at a different balance and she has all this acid in her body, it's just building up. She is a life giver in her womb. So she will build life, but what kind of life are we building? Is it a life that's for the good or for the bad? And that's a question that I like to talk to women about. So if I had to answer your question about like, where do I start in their diet? I literally tell them to go in their refrigerator and their cabinets and have a good talk with yourself. What does it look like to you? Where do you go when you're sad? What food do you get when you're glad? What food do you get when you're with your family? Tell me about you. Have you even noticed that you have a pattern? So my goal is always to, teach them about the relationship they've had and where they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
But where you've been is what leads in your head.
Mm-hmm.
We're the sum of our experiences with food all the time. As you get older as a woman, I notice that the older I get, things change. You were speaking of season. I've always known seasonal changes. I just didn't know that everybody else didn't know when I was younger. But seasonal changes with my vegetables, my fruits, my fasting, even the way I sleep, everything changes, and you need to be aware of that. But most people aren't raised to know the joy that comes from when you do that, when you make those changes, because most people don't want to change.
Right. And I think that we also have to, something that we have to do that our ancestors didn't have to do is figure out, not only have to live in harmony with nature, but in harmony with technology.
There it is.
Right. Because we have the ability now to keep our lights on all night, not realizing that, those become blockers from us getting into that state of melatonin at night to where we get into that deep rest.
Yes.
Right. And so now you might have to change your glasses to lens that block the blue light. Right. If you're going to be on your screen.
That's right.
Right. Or looking at a TV so that you're actually in a state to where your body can continue to be in harmony. Or you might need to learn now how to track your sleep. Right. If you're going to utilize technology, I think that you should utilize it in the way of wellness. Right. How can I use it to optimize my life? Right. Not just for money and convenience, but optimization. If we have all these tools and metrics, and then the other one, of course, is not dependent on external tools, but your internal signals, right? Your body, your gut, they'll tell you what's going on, what's wrong, right? There's a lot of foods that I can't eat because I automatically get a feeling already, whether it's a slight allergic reaction. And I know it's not to the real food, it's to the chemicals that's in the food that I'm allergic to, because I know that food is just a carrier of the chemicals and my body is reacting and suggesting that I don't continue to put that in my vessel, right? But when we talk about a lot of the sickness, people talk about pH balances being off from having multiple partners or whatever, but a lot of that's going to be off just from the stress.
Yes, it is.
Right. So if we're not existing in a state of peace and relaxation and stress, then we're already sick. Right. I think that you can be a vegan and eat completely healthy and still be sick.
Agreed.
Because you're not in the right mental state.
Agreed.
For you to be balanced.
Agreed.
And I think that we need to focus on that as well, creating environments of peace. Right. You talked about being a woman and being a nurturer. Right. But that, when I hear that, it's softness, it's smooth, it's flow. There's no friction in feminine. Right. Feminine is always within flow. Right. Feminine is like water, to where it always finds a pathway to keep its nature. Right. And for me, if we can get to a point where we restore true feminine energy, right? And true masculine energy, but we're talking about true feminine energy, right? That is the healer of the world. But in the way you speak, the pleasantry, the way you open up, way you give energy, right? They were shown that there was a study that after a man works out, that if he gets a long hug or he cuddles with his woman, it actually helps with gains because it relaxes and de-stresses his body to where he can heal much faster, right? So it's like all of these different things. The woman is literally a natural healer just coming around you, and she can make her man stronger, right? Just by being a light, right? And then that light that she has softens him up, right? To be even more within his light, so that there becomes this cycle of productivity and harmony amongst each other. But when that is in disarray, right? And then you enter the food industry in your house, not just the food, right? Because, and I look at Americans, it's not that we're just terrible at making food selections and choices. We have terrible food to select from.
There we go. Chicken is the devil.
Yeah.
It's a terrible source here.
You go to Italy and you go to France somewhere and you eat a food selection that food is not going to make you as tired as you eat the exact same thing in America. It doesn't mean that that person is more mindful of what they eat. It means they don't have to be as mindful of what they eat. So you have to know the devil that you're dealing with, right? And we happen to have the devil in our food because there's devils that serve our food, right? And we need to get back to regenerative farming and fresh from the farm to the table practices. And I believe that's where we can start to find sustainability in our culture, to where we can have moments and periods where things are good, but that won't last, not unless we have the eating habits and practices that coincides with that. So we have a stressed out community. And of course, we're going to continue to get cancers because that's our body way of getting rid of it, right? That's our body way of attacking itself, saying that, man, I'm done, man. Your sewer system is all clogged up and I have no other choice but to press the button. This has become a cancer. This is a hostile environment for you to continue to live and exist. This is the foundation to understand your journey into cryptocurrency. You want to be prepared for the future. And although you can make a lot of money in crypto, you can actually lose a lot as well. If you're getting in just for FOMO, you don't have a strategy, you just gambling. This is one of my favorite strategies. But we're in that time where anybody can create their own money and their own economy. That means the corporations and even the banks and the governments themselves are actually jumping into it. This is that time now where you get prepared. You will have the tools to be able to go do this research on your own, find coins on your own, and understand crypto in a way that the big boys do right now. The game is here and it's real. And if you don't play in it, then you're going to be on the sidelines watching everybody else score. And I believe that this is why it's one of the most exciting times in history. If you're smart, you playing the game.
Unlock infinite wealth strategies at highlevel.19keys.com/IWS.
Number one, what do you eat and what don't you eat? Then I want to go into your father's legacy a little bit.
Okay. So what do I eat and what don't I eat? I don't eat chicken.
So no chicken.
We're going to start there. I like to be, a lot of people ask me, what do I eat on a daily basis? There's a couple of staples that I keep because I grew up with them. I love my fruits and vegetables, but I'm an avocado. I'm a blueberry. I'm a rye lover. I love quinoa. These are just things I have in my cabinet all the time, right? These are things I keep. But I'm not always at home. Just like you, I travel a lot. So when people say, are you just vegan? Are you plant-based? I'm plant-balanced. That's the important thing about my cabinets, is that I have everything that's on the food list that I was ever taught. But how I come in to my understanding of food has to do with me and my relationship with not wanting to be sick, me wanting to be loving, me wanting to be transcended into a higher top tier level of thinking. So if I'm always chasing that higher level of thinking, then the way I eat is always got to match that. If I want to be fly, and trust me, the older you get as a woman, you want to be as fly as possible. My food has got to match that fly. So my thought process is always, once I open that refrigerator, what am I fueling with? I love papaya. That is one of the most beautiful things for women that I have ever seen in my life. It is so helpful. For me, I think the way I eat has been designed to what I need to feel in that time of the year, what I need to grasp, what I need to, meditate on. It's always, it's never the same. In my household, one of the things that was a staple with my father was banana pancakes. I remember he would make those when I was younger, and that's always been a staple, something I remember. But when it comes to what I want to feel, I know that refrigerator will set the tone. It just sets the tone. I don't know another process. Do I hang out at fast foods? I don't know who told people that fast food was okay. That's been an issue with me my whole life, is understanding how people continue to live there in fast food. It's not food. It's not healthful food. It is a form of something that you can take it in. It's, easy to digest, but what did it actually do?
Yeah.
What is it? So, I like to eat at home because most of the conversations that I've ever had, the intellectual, the loving, the hard, the challenging, happens at home. Cooking at home is my form of love
Mm.
to me and whoever's in my house. I can't say I love you if I keep taking you to this rib joint, although you like it.
Yeah.
So me at home, I'm a home cooker.
Mm.
But, you know, like I said, born in the 70s. So all the wonderful cooks that are out right now, they've grown, these young people, and they have like Dr. Sebi or Alkaline chefs everywhere. They didn't have one of those when I
Yeah. No, the industries definitely have grown and matured, right?
Yeah.
I actually, I seen some headline and something he was a part of. They was explaining how Dr. Sebi had produced $1 billion industry. Of course, speaking on number one, CMOS,
Yeah.
right? And then, of course, just all of the alkaline diets and waters and
Sure.
all of the different things that have come out of it. And
Sure.
so many people have, of course, changed the name and rebranded it, but it's the exact same thing.
Sure.
And it's funny because when I look at Black men and their legacies, right? Some of the most impactful Black men in American history are erased, right? And when I say impactful, it's easy to know because take them out of history and see how much changes, right? There's this lineage and there's these branches of things that just wouldn't exist. There's words that wouldn't exist. There's businesses, there's industries completely like there wouldn't be as many boats gassing up to go to the ocean to grab sea moss from the bottom of it. You know what I'm saying? With the Bushmen, you feel me? To learn the ways of taking it off and drying it and whipping it up.
Oh, yeah.
Like so many entrepreneurs of business have started from that. And it's like we have to, number one, pay homage to the root of that because I don't think we appreciate our ancestors when we add something to it, right? We like impact and legacy does matter, right? So I want to get into Dr. Sebi's legacy. First of all, when you think about your father, what comes to mind? Just when Kellie Bowman thinks about her father, what comes to mind for you?
Courage. Courage in a time that he was the strongest man I'd ever seen. And my father was very tall, but he was courage for us. This was not designed to be just for his family. This was designed to do what it is doing right now. It is designed to touch you. It's designed to touch your children, everybody, because we need to know how to eat. And he didn't stop until he got that message out there. And that takes courage because the very people he thought they would support him all the way left. And it was just me, his other kids, and him.
How many children does Dr. Sebi have?
You know, people always ask me, and I remember when I talked to him many years ago, there was about 20 plus there at that time, and they weren't born in America.
Okay.
All of them were American.
He spread them seeds around, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm one of my father's oldest kids. I said that him and my mom had a pretty good relationship because I looked just like him. I'm like, I don't know what kind of wonderfulness that y'all was talking about, but it's real clear. You can see the lineage in not only in the way that I look, but it's not that he left me just this face. It's what he left in me. He need not to leave me money. He left me fully equipped. I need not to have anything, no village. I didn't need any of that. I needed to be a good human. And he instilled in me the love of mankind, but the love and the fight for the natural things. And it's okay to stand up for the truth. See, because it's not the CMOS that is the biggest thing in my life about my dad that I found so awesome. It was the journey of a man who took courage in that journey and beat all odds. We don't look at that enough. It's not the product that came from that. It's the mindset because we're all different Dr. Sebis. So when I named my company Sebi's Daughters, at first it had to do with one thing, but as I've grown and I've become humble to this process of nature and this fight, because I think I'm a superhero, hence my gloves.
You well suited and prepared for the job.
There we are. Listen, I don't come unprepared. But I named it Sebi's Daughters for one reason, and it grew to knowing that every woman wanting to tie into natural things, fighting for her children, fighting for her mother, her aunts, is a Sebi's daughter. So,
what is something that most people don't know about Dr. Sebi?
Oh gosh, what could I share that no one knows? That he played the flute. I played the flute.
Yeah.
That was one thing.
So like Andre 3000.
So I've seen him recently, and I enjoy his music. And it's so cleansing because I like playing sound bath instruments over my products, because I feel like there is a consciousness that maybe you can't hear me because you're sick, but I'm going to send you with this higher vibration of product because I know you need it. And I don't need to meet you to give you love. I'm going to love you for free, and I'm going to give you that for free because it's necessary, because that's my peace, to give you peace.
Yes. So have you, when it comes to Honduras, right? What's so special about Honduras to where he wanted his village there? And have you really experienced the healing factor that is spoken upon when it comes to Honduras in the village?
My kind sir, off of the back of his older children, that village was built. My father had a vision, and he entrusted us to continue his legacy while he was in Honduras and he was building. We were running that LA store. And one of the things that we experienced from groundbreaking, and for me up till now, was the love of nature that he put in, the passion we had for the love of people and community. He knew a lot of people wanted to get there. He knew a lot of people were sick and they just wanted somewhere to go to release. On that land lies his best work and a lot of his love, his biggest love. The mango trees, the healing waters. When you are in thermal waters, it is exciting. Walking that ground with my father and him telling me about all the plants he planted, all the trees he planted for others. Selfless act. It was his love letter to the community.
Yeah.
And so when I was little, when I was younger, the village was doing very well, but it wasn't Americans that were going. It wasn't just Americans.
Who was going?
Well, he was traveling all over the world. So you had people from Norway, you had people from different parts of the world. I can't name all of them. I can't tell you everybody, but he would call and we would talk about that all the time. But we were running the store in order for the store to feed the village. So that labor of love is founded in passion for others. And so when I look at it, when I would go to the village when I was younger, he's always in the garden. He's always doing this. He's always seeing a client. That was his labor of love. That's what I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the old school in me, but that treasure will always stay in my heart because it was built off of positivity. It was built off of an energy higher than what people could ever understand. His life work was at a high vibration that I was in awe. I think I was one of his biggest fans as a child because I loved his love for others. And I grabbed that, so.
Do you believe you got to spend enough time with him?
I would not want to cry on your show. I will tear up. Getting knowledge, I don't think you ever want to stop. When you pull it from a source that gives it to you, you're a giver. I seen that in your eyes, and I told you that, this conversation was only between me and you. And I told you what I saw because there's something that he gave me that I see in you. And that light is awesome because it helps others. No. But I am equipped. But no. I would never feel like that I had enough time.
I think that's the reality of being a light worker, a giver, a healer. When you have somebody that's your parents, you have to share them with the world. And there's always that sacrifice, right? And I think that is the tough part of the love aspect. Anytime you have a parent or somebody that is going out there and doing so much for the world, you get to observe that legacy. You get to observe their traits, right? Because you spoke upon his courage, which to me lets me understand that observation as you've seen him and interpreted that to understand the dangers that may coincide with what you're doing, right? And going against the beaten path, talking about accurate things, right? Knowing that, there's an entire scientific community that is completely against that.
Yes.
Going through court cases and fighting those cases and getting to your freedom. I've greatly observed my father, not through him spending a vast amount of time, right? But understanding who he was as a man and how he impacted others, right? And how he handled himself in different situations. And that let me know what was inside me, right? And that allowed me to father myself through the traits that I reflected from my father, right? And I think that every child doesn't have that ability to perceive things in that manner, right? A lot of children think about what they missing instead of what they had, right? And that changes the direction because your parent could have been there a very small amount of time, but it's not about that. It's about the quality of time you got to spend with them. Because I think that sometimes we can spoil children with too much presence and we don't bring out any greatness. But then the absence forces us to grow closer to our parents because we have to learn them by the absence, right? Versus being spoiled by the presence and always waiting for the next step. We have to learn on our own, right? And I think that's a very powerful thing because as I observe Dr. Sebi's children, and there's a spectrum, right? And each one of you all are doing work that reflects what you've seen your father did, right? You all may not all agree, right? But y'all are similar on the same paths, right? Which I think is a very powerful thing that you can have a pillar that's so strong that you literally want to take that same legacy and take it further or literally be a reflection of your father, right? As we talk about our exalted father, the creator, he was all made in his image, right? But to actually appreciate the image that we was made in and want to reflect that, because everybody don't do that within their deeds, is very powerful. We're here talking about healing and the positive effects that you have on the world and the impact of what that healing legacy looks like in a time where it's needed the most. And in a time where a lot of those things where he may have been admonished for and rejected for and hated against are now being celebrated. Now they calling them biohacks. You know what I'm saying? Now they have, this is the new wellness industry that is going. Now this is alternative health, right? Now this is the holistic community. But these things were never accepted at first. Now that we have our own media, we can just dictate the narratives that we consume, right? Which is very powerful. So I see, when I think about the future and I think about afterlife, a man is not dead if his works continue to live, right? And especially if they threw the seeds of his own genes, right? And that's reflected in the children that he has. Not only that, I know so many healers. Every healer that I've had on my show, Dr. Sebi has impacted them in a way. And then they went on to impact millions and millions. And at this point, billions of people have been impacted in some sort of way. And I think that if you are to live your life in some capacity, touch the world in a way to where it continues to impact others forever. I think that's, to me, I think that's the best way to be a father, because you can't be immortal, but you can do work that lives forever.
Sure. I believe that. And I think every child sees their parent differently. As you've said, I don't think any of my brothers and sisters are right, and I don't think they're wrong. And that's the way he raised us. I think for me, because I'm one of the older ones, we had a interesting kind of bond, because I think he felt like I was a mini me at one time of him in some areas. But when we look at how we're raised in a household and what that means, and it could mean everything to me in one way and everything to someone else. Like you said, it's all in the goal of healing. And sometimes the healing is ourselves. So when you talk about my brothers and sisters, how I look at all the experiences of each one of them, and some that who are not my brothers and sisters, who claim that they're family members because they just want to be attached to something so positive. And I get it. And for that, I don't judge, but you got to still find your way once you finish with that. So you still have a journey to go on. But I really feel like, when we look at our lives, are we dealing in something we've taught, something we're learning? We don't really know. We just see that there is a process. And my process for each one, my love for each one of them in prayer is love and light always. But most of the time when you have a household full of kids and the message is one way, be kind because we're all sick. That was a constant conversation with all of his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to work through our own sickness to even see that message. Because I believe our parents leave us with a lot to think about. And I really I so appreciate that so many have come from learning our journey because we were up close and personal. People will never know how much you know about your mom. They only know what you tell them or what they want or what they want, what they can see, but not what you've experienced. The looks on her face when she smiles, her frustration, her giddy laughs when she's with the people. You know your mother. I know my father and I know my mom, and I love them for allowing me the time that I had with them to see it. And it was raw. Because trust, my father was not somebody who minced words. He said what he said it. That's what he meant. My mother was the same way. But how I calculate that in here makes all the difference. So my journey is going to always be put forth to represent two people who operated in love. But how Kelly spins that is very important to how I touch someone's life. The goal is always to be a listener and a forever learner of life. And it's going to take me high because that's where I want to go. I'm not looking back. I know what's back there. I'm okay with my ancestors, what I've learned from the past. I take it with me on my shoulders so I don't have to look back because it's carried here. So I look forward to who I'm meeting. I look forward to where I'm going. And that path is just the way it is because that's how I saw my parents. So I'm going to rock this because I don't know how much time and if we ever will sit down again, but I am so glad that we did because guess what? We are impactful because we choose to be, and we want to have that top tier for you, for me, for everybody that you meet and touch. What is your legacy? Can I ask you a question now?
Yeah, and it's a conversation, so we can go. We good, for sure.
What do you want people to remember about you? I think about that question a lot, but what do you want people to remember about you?
I want people to remember that I was obedient to my mission fully and that I evolved into who I was supposed to be based on, right, my journey. I look at it like in all religions, you can take a person's birthday, a time of the month, or, in some cultures you can take their name, right, when they was born, and then they show you a code of this is this person, this is what they're supposed to do, right? And I want my legacy and work to be I completely lived up to who I was supposed to be in the world. What I was supposed to give to the people, the bridge that I was supposed to bring, right? The impact to the world that I was supposed to have. I want to live here completely as like a star that comes and burns out because he's exhausted all of the energy and light that I could give, right? I'm young. So on my journey, I'm still developing and listening, right, to what I'm supposed to do next. And my goal is just to be obedient to what that is. But so far, my goal was always to be remembered. Some people claim that they don't like legacy or whatever. That's fine for them. I think most of those people are lying because they all live in a way like they're trying to produce a legacy, and that's to be remembered and impactful. Like I want to be one of the ones that literally shift the diaspora into that new era, right? Like he took us over that threshold of where we were trying to go and finally got us to see it by being it.
Yeah.
Like if I could demonstrate and be all the things that I want us to be, that's me. That's 19 keys. That's taking us to that new spectrum of consciousness and allowing us to open our gifts to where we see the world as ours. We don't see ourselves subservient. We don't see ourselves slaves. We see ourselves masters, right? Where we literally go from slave ship to the mothership, where we all exist at that higher level. When I meet men and women across the planet Earth, they always talk to me about who I helped them become, right? And to me, that's powerful, right? And I try not to put limitations on my legacy, because sometimes I could be shooting for a target that's too small, right? And then it's like God laughing at you. Like, you thought that was all I had in store for you? You feel me? So I'm open to what my legacy will become by learning, right? Like, the conversation is a part of that legacy of creating a library when one can go through that same process of becoming as well, by having exposure and access to knowledge, information, and different beings of different lights that they can learn from. Like, how do you be somebody that helps people be still in a world of chaos, right? How do you help people realize themselves when everything is trying to make them forget who they are, right? My goal is to represent 19 keys at the highest level. Whatever that mountain is at the end when I plant my flag, I just want to make sure that whatever vision I get, I fully and completely live it out. So when that other people looking at that life, they say, damn, I want to do what 19 keys did, but not exactly what he did, but I want to do it in my way. That he lived out all of his light that was supposed to be shared.
That's what's up.
Yeah. And I would have loved to meet Dr. Sebi. I remember actually, I went to the LA store the day he died, right? Because I happened to be in LA at that time, and I had bought me some herbs and things of that nature. But you're right, the courage that he had, and when he would speak and it would go against so many different foundations of knowledge that people had and said that, no, you can't say this is alkaline this, or you can't say don't eat this. He didn't care. He spoke about whatever subject that he wanted to courageously and as real and as confident, in all of who he was, right? And I think that's why it impacted so many people. Dr. Sebi never came across as a man who doubted himself.
At all.
You know what I'm saying? Ever. Right?
Never.
When he moved, he showcased his frustrations, yes, of which I get. When you're trying to bring people and you're trying to do the thing that's right for them and they're not listening and you're not getting that help, most of the time it's just you ahead of your time, right? Because it's like when you look at the election cycle, you try to tell people things about politics during the election season, they can't hear it. You wait a day afterwards, they'll hear you, right? Sometimes you just a day early, right? And that can come in years, right? That can come in months. But now we're at that point in time where those words, some people right now just go find Dr. Sebi on YouTube. And those words are right on time. And not only on time for them, but on time for the world and the environment that they're in, right? So I like the aspect of the CMOS in the sense to where there's not too many people that can point to certain products and say, yo, that origin source of this becoming popularized across the globe, that was one man. Nobody can take that away. You know what I mean? But not only that, just that whole heal thyself. You know what I mean? The individual being empowered to have their own healing journey. Because the doctors aren't as knowledgeable as we think, right? They are given scripts, right, to prescribe, right?
Yeah.
They only have as much time as what the pharmaceutical companies give them. Hey, learn this about this. When a person comes in with these groups of issues, then you can prescribe them this and you get your commission. It's a business, it's a system. If you want to get out the business, you have to get out the sick care industry, right? And healthcare starts at home. When you're sick, you go to the hospital. People don't go to the hospital because they're healthy. So your goal in life is to avoid that by living a lifestyle that allows you to stay high vibrational, right? And that goes into your music. That goes into who you talk to, right? That goes into what you're looking at, whether you wake up in the morning and you gaze in the sun to make sure you stand in that circadian rhythm and you de-stressing your body from the anxieties of the day, right? Whether you have so much anxiety that you're so self-aware to say, man, I can't even watch a horror movie because that's going to add into that matrix of negativity of thoughts, right? Like when I think about alkalinity, just in that idea that we live in an acidic world and you need to learn how to balance that out, that's a key just as a philosophy of life. Live alkaline, right? Understand when you can even afford to eat certain foods, right? People always tell you don't drink, right, when you're angry. Don't try to drink to cope. But we never say the same thing when it comes to food, right? You get angry, you go eat some food.
Yeah.
You start snacking, right? You get lonely and you go that chicken. You know what I'm saying? Keep you company. You feel me? Nobody rubbing on your thighs. You go get you some thighs. You rubbing on them thighs. Nobody rubbing on your breast, you get the breast. You got to stop this. This is ridiculous. So we got to stop making food our partners. You got to learn how to deal with the loneliness as peace. It's not really loneliness. It is single peace, right? Be with yourself, right? Now, decrease that necessity to always need stimulation, which is the food. And this food has so many chemicals in it, it's overstimulating, right? And then once you're in a calm place, now think about what you want to eat. Because like if I wake up late, it makes me crave sugar. But when I'm aware of that, I say, no, I realize I didn't get enough sleep. So now my body wants this junk food for a quick charge of energy. But that's not what's good for me. So now one issue turns into another and it becomes a cycle. And it's like, damn. And that's why maintaining balance is so important, because there's such a deep correlation between wealth and health.
But then who's in charge when that happens? Is it your food or was it you? That discipline is what I'm speaking of. That very discipline about your food. That discipline, you see how you had that afterthought? That's where I'm one to pin anybody I speak to, my customers, my clients, people who you don't even have to know me. If I hear that kind of conversation, I need to course correct you and give you a higher vibration thought. Stop the madness. Find your discipline with your food because it is controlling you. You're not controlling it. And that's been the problem.
When you're on that good coffee, man, ideas just come to you. Your mind just gets supercharged and you don't get sleepy. You're not tired. You're ready to go. You got that focus amplified, especially for the people that got that ADHD and they tired of taking that Adderall that make them wake up in the morning and they feel extra emotional. Why Supermind? Because regular coffee don't cut it. Who wants some regular mind? Supermind, mental, energy, focus. So let's get through a couple of steps of food discipline, right? I'm coming to you and imagine I'm not 10% body fat, right? I ain't all muscle. Imagine I'm really big fat guy, maybe 30% body fat. I got bad eating habits. But I ain't gonna lie, I seen one video on High Level Conversations and I want to get myself together, right? So I'm coming to you, Kellie Bowman, and I'm asking you for your help. Can you give me some guidance so that I can get my life together? Because I can't get the woman I want because my breasts are bigger than hers. That's how these brothers are.
Wow. That's a real situation. That almost happened something like that with me on the phone with someone.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. All right. So you want to start. Okay. So now I need to know a little bit about what you're going through. And what I mean by that is, where is your pattern of understanding with your daily food? What are you going through the day? So what is your breakfast? What is your lunch? What is your dinner? What is your access? Because everybody is different. There are so many food deserts out here, and we will default on whatever is available for so long that we don't know anything else.
All right, so I'm a simulate it.
Yeah, so
I wake up, I probably have a donut.
Right.
You know what I mean? Wash that down with some milk. Probably later on, I might eat some chips or something if I'm still hungry. And then I probably wash that down with some soda. But I do the diet soda because I know I don't want to get the regular soda. Right? And then I'll probably have lunch a little later. You know what I mean? And then I usually go to a fast food joint, probably get me some Starbucks, a Frappuccino, you know what I'm saying? Extra caramel, you know what I mean? Salt latte or something like that.
That's what's up. I hear it all.
Right?
I hear, come on.
Then I'll probably go grab me a turkey sandwich because I'm trying to be a little healthy.
Yeah.
You feel me? But I'll get the bacon on there. I get the bacon on the sandwich as well, just for a little fat. Just mix that up.
Yeah.
You know, then give me a little yogurt on the side, you feel me? Because I got to eat some kind of health.
Put some kale on top and then we'll make it alkaline
kale,
maybe
you
or
feel
something.
Me? And then I eat a little sea moss with that as well. I got a little sea moss pudding. You feel me? And then later on, I probably get me a steak or something, you know what I'm saying, with some mashed potatoes and some asparagus so I can balance out my food groups.
Plants
and then
and proteins,
I'll probably eat a cheese steak after that. You feel me? Because I got a little sweet tooth that I got from my pops. So where did I go wrong?
My question is, where did you go right? We have breasts. So we see everything that you've been doing in this routine of food has proven to be that your hips are bigger than mine. Your breasts are bigger than mine. So we clearly see what your understanding of food knowledge is. The lack of education on food is a serious thing. And this is why I want to keep talking. Every time I sit down with someone, and I mean talking to the masses, to on the corners, because the lack of understanding will keep men in that position. And it doesn't only give them boobs, but it lowers their testosterone. So I know that he's not working there either. So he's probably having, taking those Viagra pills, and he's thinking that everything he's doing with heavy porn or whatever he's doing.
Well, he don't need the pills because he ain't got no woman.
Well, then he probably is looking at the porn because that's all he got at this point.
Just the screen.
But the reason, the biggest reason we're here is because of the lack of understanding. So let's get into the understanding of a higher level of food sources that will give you what you want, because you want a woman, but we can't have a woman with a woman's body. So we're going to have to take away a couple of things. We're going to have to meet in the middle. We're going to have to meet, the minds have got to meet, because there's something you want that you're not giving yourself. So the question is, why did you give up on yourself? Why are you hurting yourself? Tell me why you are abusing yourself.
Well, because these women out here, man, they act like they don't want a man. They want somebody that got 6 figures, and you know what I'm saying, that's unrealistic out here, and they superwoman this, and they act like they don't want a real man. And so sometimes I just be by myself eating, and I ain't got nobody to cook for me at home.
Nutritional abuse is something that I really have a problem with when it comes to anybody talking to me, Keith. Because you can tell me that you want to love this woman, but you don't even love yourself. There's nothing you could do for her. And these are the conversations I have. So you gave me a real life situation, because when your estrogen raises as a man, you can get breast cancer. Did you know that was a thing? So this is why I went to nursing school. You see, we go all the way back. This is why I want to continue talking, because anatomy and physiology of a Black man's body is something that is awesome. But when you turn on it, and that's an abomination of nature, it shows up in breasts. So forgive yourself.
What about all these fat kids?
Well,
like, do you think that a parent, because I know a lot of people with a lot of big kids. I mean, I'm talking about big chubby monsters.
Yes.
Right? And they just let them just keep growing. You know what I'm saying? Look like them plump chickens that they put
there you go.
They just keep getting bigger and bigger, like little balloon bodies. So should the parent allow their child when they're younger to just, eat whatever you want to, and then they can grow out of it later on when they decide? Because it's almost like how you would say, let a kid be a kid. Let them have their snacks. Let them do whatever they want to. And they get mad when people on the internet judge their little chubby monster. You know what I'm saying? But as the parent, they feel like, well, I'm big and I turned out okay, right? So what's wrong with my child being a little chubby monster?
Well, because that abuse that I'm talking about just got passed down to your child. That chain of abuse is now, you are seeing it show up. That trauma that you had is now showing up in your children. So is that okay for you to kill your kid? Is that okay for you to abuse? Somebody needs to come in and take your child from you, because it doesn't have to be physical abuse that you give to your child. Are you loving your child, or are you just allowing them to exist with this trauma?
Damn, that's real. I do think that parenting should definitely be looked at in that scope, especially when a child is young, because you control all their eating habits.
There it is.
So that's not them having bad habits. That's you feeding them and giving them your habits, because they're eating with you. So they're developing the same patterns. So I think that, yes, bad parenting does start at the kitchen table.
It does.
Right? You're either healing your child or you're killing them. Right? And, I remember when I was younger and we'd have our fast food days. Right? I used to be a vegetarian when I was younger. I grew up in Oakland, where it was at Your Black Muslim Bakery. But I grew up at a time where, it was almost like they had gluten-free and vegan options like way before veganism was a thing.
I know for sure.
Yeah. So fresh fishes and foods. Like, I grew up in a bakery where we had rolled the dough, the bread was fresh, the pies was fresh, everything was fresh. I stole so much food from there, it don't make no sense. feel me? But we'll still have our fast food days, but that fast food wasn't the same. Those fish fillet sandwiches from McDonald's wasn't the same as the fish that they're using now.
That's right.
Right? Like if you go to another country and you eat Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, in Africa, those was real local homegrown chickens. It's not the same as when you're in America eating that. That was when the hormones came and different laws had passed and they start injecting those things to keep up with the demand as well. And they was want to decrease overhead, which increases death. So, you know, I can understand, you know, implementing them sometime when you were younger and then having to break that out. Because for our generation, there was a time where so many people just quit McDonald's and never went back. Right? It was just, wait a minute, what is it I was eating? Oh, you don't know? Well, I'm never going back. And there's still a lot of people who eat McDonald's. They now have a vegetarian McDonald's. But when I was younger, my mother was a vegetarian and my sister was too. And for some reason, I decided I wanted to at a very young age. But what happened was we had a KFC day, right? So, and they used to smell good back in the day with the barbecue chicken and the biscuits. Oh my God, with the honey barbecue packs.
That's when it was real.
With the butter. Oh, that butter melt fast. And they had the coleslaw and everything, and the family in there eating, and I'm over here vegetarian. So
here's the
I
battle.
remember sneaking the chicken when everybody was watching TV in the next room, eating under the table the barbecue chicken, and I just had this moment like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I don't even have to be vegetarian, so why am I hiding?
You are where you are behind the decisions you make. And here's
Yeah.
what I feel, because there's no judgment. Do I feel like everybody in the world is a vegetarian that talks to me? Do I feel like that this is the way that everybody does? No, let's throw that out. Let's be honest here at this table. If 90%, let's just say even 80% of what you eat, you know what is the source, you know what you're doing, then your body can take care of the rest of the 20%.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we miss that. You can have an alkaline diet, but if you should happen to leave this country, which I was talking to a client recently about that, if you decide to leave and you decide to partake in moderation of something, you don't think that your body is able to deal with that, then you don't believe in you yet. Trust is a big thing. You have to trust yourself. You got to know yourself, because I know for definite, when you make decisions of that sort, your body can do what it needs to do. So that one little chicken meal is not going to change the structure of what your body can do, because it has taken care of you up to then. It's going to continue to, and it's already highly functioning very well. So it can do what it needs to do.
I think there's the mindfulness aspect in it, because there are studies that show when people think they eat healthier, right? They feel healthier. Therefore, that's the placebo effect, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that was the, my grandmother's generation, right? They may live up to 70, 80, 90 years old. Now, the quality of their living, right, wasn't the same, but they also didn't know better, right? And they probably built up throughout those years of decades of eating food, some sort of natural immunity towards a lot of those different things. But also she died of cancer and high blood pressure and diabetes and a whole bunch of other stuff. We didn't even know until after, right? So they did the blood test and told her she was suffering with all of that. I don't even think she knew. But she would drink cases of Pepsi every single day, right? She would eat terrible, right? She would have the what's the pig intestine called? The chitlins. Yeah, I'd never come over when they was cooking the chitlins. We had to leave when they was doing that. But that's the reality. There's people that still eat that, and everything our ancestors done, right, wasn't good, right? There's so many traditions that we need to completely just get away from and destroy and never go back to. And we have to become children of the sun again, right? We eat what the sun has dictated is good for it by the sun putting energy into it, not these things that were grown in labs, right? And because that the industry of food has become so large that they have to put chemicals in it to serve the masses just so it can be preserved from one place to another. So we're not getting the fresh produce, but they may be preserving the food from molding and dying, but they're not preserving the nutrients, right, that are living, that when we eat those, our body then it's charged, that God body, to where you need that high vibrational thought to tap into some of that psychic power. You may need that for some of that intuitive power. So when we talked about their zombies, yeah, most people eat like zombies. They eat dead flesh only, right? They eat nothing living, and they only crave dead flesh, and the parasites in them crave the dead flesh, right? So they think that that's what you like. No, that's what the worm in you likes, right? And that worm is now having control over your brain, telling you, let's get more sugar, right? And so now that is going towards your spending habits. But when I was in Japan, you know, they got a 4 to 5% rate of obesity. 4 to 5%. I ain't see one big person, not a sumo wrestler out there. You know what I'm saying? As soon as I got to the airport, we was about to leave. I see this big old security guard. I said, damn, I'm back in America. But they had the elders could stand up for hours. They working all of these jobs all around because they also have a super aging population. But they also have they take care of their elders, right? And they flow with their elders.
Yeah.
And the elders have us, they outside running and doing Tai Chi. And man, it just seems so beautiful to see so many of them in motion and constantly moving. And that's another thing. Like, we eat so much and we don't even burn the things that we eat. So it's a lot of times it's that people are eating like construction workers, but ain't constructed nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you sitting on the couch and you eating like you building pyramids. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Like, it's shown that even if you just stand up and do 10 sit-ups, I mean, not sit-ups, but squats, that's about the equivalent of a 10-minute walk.
And that also lowers your chances of cancer.
Yes.
The more you move.
Yes.
The more you move. Get up, walk to the store. You ain't got to Uber your food.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all that. Get up and do something. Do you know how many young people between the ages of 30 and 45 develop stomach cancer because of COVID? Because they sat, they ate processed foods, they went to bed and did this over and over again. And this was during COVID. The amounts skyrocketed, infections, everything happened during that time. I get where you're going. I hear exactly what you're saying. And I think that's why these conversations of higher level, I always call it top tier eating. That alkaline list is your top tier way of benefiting yourself. It's benefiting your family. It's a top tier. Come on, let's get there. Let's go together. Having the tools are right here for you. But that moving, that love for self needs to get you to the point of doing something instead of a doctor telling you you have diabetes and now you have to do something. Do something in front of that. Yeah. Don't let a man tell you your numbers. You should know your numbers already. You don't have to go to the doctor to get your numbers. You can literally go to Walmart and get a blood pressure cuff, an A1C machine, a sugar machine, and keep your life straight. You don't have to do this anymore. Like you said, technology is what it is. You can learn about yourself, but you gotta want to. So that's the key there. That's the wisdom. All people have knowledge. Everybody has knowledge of something, but it is that wisdom that I want people to see that brings them to that top tier life.
How does a woman become a healer?
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful question. I don't know that I started to feel that I was a healer. I think you're born a healer. But when you have your first child, when you give life, it propels you into a cosmic, I can't even experience. I don't know what to call it for a man because it's a shared experience at one time, but that part of the journey, just like any journey, I believe, whether it's a man or a woman, you have to want to. You have to give into that humility. You have to give into that humbleness. You have got to pummel your body in a way only for God. You know, sometimes it is easier for a woman to be alone and to learn herself before she gets with a man to see herself. She needs to leave that experience to find herself, to hear God. Too many distractions keep us from hearing. So I think it takes a want. I think it takes it definitely takes courage. And it's courage for self, but it's self-love. I think all of us are healers. Each one of us. I think all of us have something to offer, but make sure we're all offering. If all of us offered the right things, the healing things, where would we be? But most of us talk in sickness.
When you had, how many children have you had?
I have two.
You had two. Were they natural?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We now are having this conversation, a huge conversation around abortion, right?
Yeah.
And specifically a huge conversation around the lack of correct access to, Black women being able to give birth,
Yeah.
right? Without all of these failing birth rates because of the complications that happen, which is directly related to medical racism, right? So we aren't having enough conversations around doulas, right? And saying that, okay, well, if there's an issue with the medical institution, how about we then fund the alternative? How about we set up foundations and grants and things of that nature and nonprofits and charities that can help fund these women out here that can help us give birth to the future, right? So what are your thoughts, number one, when it comes to pregnancy, right? And the miracle of having a baby, if you will. My mom, she had like 11 of them. I don't know how she did all that. Yeah.
I like your mother.
Yeah. She was just making sure she kept going. She had the right one. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to tell her, it's enough. You have me. No, I'm just playing. Shout out to my brothers. I love my brothers.
Yes.
No, but when a woman gives when a woman gives birth, it's something a man can experience. How would you, number one, best describe that process? You know what I mean? Of like learning that you're pregnant. And then like that moment, you got that ring of fire, you pushing past that pain, and it's the most excruciating pain you've ever felt. You deliver a baby and then you decide to do it again. How do you make that decision to do it again after going through that once?
Well, beautiful thing about God, he doesn't let you remember it. But it's your tribe, it's your community that feeds you. Hopefully you're having a good, at the time of conception, my prayer for all women is that you have someone that loves you. You loving you is one thing, but someone else adding to that in the support of the spouse or the father of the child, because that can change a lot for a woman. I think a lot of women have come under the understanding that it's okay to have a baby by themselves. I don't believe that should not be a shared experience. I believe it should be a positive shared experience. I think that most women who have babies love the feeling of giving life. It's something I wish your mother would probably give you the language and help you with the understanding what I'm trying to communicate right now, but it's such a surge of energy that is God-given. And for that reason, it should be appreciated that we could even do that. That we could bring life. We should have a sister circle around each woman. So doulas, shout out to all of them because they're awesome. I was at a birthing center with a doula, my first child in my 20s. My husband was right there and I was having the baby standing up because gravity is a whole thing. Most women don't do that. But again, me and your childhood was a little different. So my body gave me more than most women. 2 hours.
You said you stood up.
Yes, I was standing up and there was a mirror at the bottom and she was off to the side and there you go. You see the baby coming.
Yeah.
You are now a parent.
Wow.
Parenting starts way before that baby gets there, but that journey, because it's more of the woman. I understand that on that baby's day of birth, that's that date for that baby and we celebrate it by a birthday, but actually that was that mom's journey. My mom used to share with me that on the day you were born, it was this time and this is what we were doing and this is what happened. And she is very clear. She was very clear with talking to me about the day I was born. But that was my mama's journey. And I love hearing it. And that's a love that I couldn't explain that she had for that moment. So when you ask me, I remember how she delighted in that day and that journey was difficult, but she had the courage to do it.
That's actually very profound thinking about that because you don't really think about how much the day that a child is born, right? That's another rebirth for the mother as well.
Yes.
Right? Number one is one of the most memorable and painful days of her life.
Yes.
But also the most joyful. So it's where the most emotion is happening all at once. And that literally rewires you. I mean, as you're going through pregnancy, you're being rewired anyway.
Yes.
Right? But that day of, there's not too many things in life that can happen that will have more memories and emotions charged to where that changes who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, every child, a mother has her own birthday, which is the day that she gave birth. And then of course the day that that child was delivered into the world, which is why they say you're really supposed to celebrate your parents on your birthday versus yourself. You ain't do nothing.
I love that thought. You cried and pooped.
Yeah. You ain't do nothing. That was the toughest thing that she had to go through. It almost sacrificed her whole life to bring you here into this dimension.
But by you saying that lets me know your level of humility. See, again, I can see a person through what they do and what they think, because the average person wouldn't have that answer because it's still an ego.
Mm-hmm.
So us identifying and staying clear means that these things have to be recognized in people and their processes. It's so, don't let a moment go by that you are not paying attention, because it is so a bigger global issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not here in America. It's a global issue. If we think bigger, think higher, we will see more things. There's more to see out there. There's more to learn. There's so much more to experience together.
Yeah.
To get back to your question, that day, becoming a mother for the first time, the crying, the amount of tears, the first time breastfeeding. Of course, you breastfeed both of your children. This is the way I was taught. I felt invincible. I can not only have this baby, I can feed this baby. I will be feeding this baby what? Love. Hopefully, I will teach them about this, and I will feed them character. I will do all I can. You just have all these thoughts at once, how you're going to mold this individual into something that's hopefully a good thing. But when we get to the point of the chubby kid, where did we lose our way? At kindergarten, when you learned about how you're to eat and how you're to run and how you're to get along with people, when did we lose our way? There are just thoughts in life that I look back and I go, where did we stop learning the routine of positivity or progression in ourselves? When did we find the couch to be such a comforting place? The bed to be such a comforting place, and not conversations with each other. I like how people will punk out and just send you a heart. No, I need to talk to you.
What do you think when you talked about your mother, and there's so much missing from that era? It feels so long ago, right? When you think about where the world is today, right? Like, what do you think is different from like your grandmother and your mother's time, right? That wisdom, their practices, right? Their way of thinking and doing versus where we are today.
My mom, I believe, had such a large amount of pride. They were a proud people back then. And I really appreciate that she taught me a lot through her raising us through her era. Now, remember, they're not going to raise you in your era. They're going to raise you in their era. So I learned to appreciate those times when you want to say something, but you shouldn't. Those times when, things are going wrong and you want to be animated about something, but you got to reel this back in and deal with it the right way. One of the things at that time in my mom and my dad's life, because they both died in their mid-80s, was about where the healing came from. And back then, there were more farms. There were more herbalists. They didn't call them that in the country, but there were more farms. See, my mom came from the country. My father came from another country.
Yeah.
So, but healing's still the same. So in their era, your local herbalist was the doctor. In my mom's era, you go to that garden or the house down the street, she's going to put together something that's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
So I know that, and so going to the hospital, there was a lot of problems with that part altogether. Having babies was at home. So the thoughts about, my mom and how she was raised up to now and what we have a lack of understanding about self. Back then, I don't think that was even a thing. You could live with, you couldn't survive without self. So looking at the way things are now, I know it frustrates the elders to where we are now because of how much we needed self back then, how much we needed our communities bind together. You know, there's such a division. There's so many divisive things out here. It's kind of interesting. But then again, there's a bittersweet time where we all get together on the internet. There's things that we agree upon and disagree, and we can have conversations, hopefully. But this is one of the platforms that I feel like more people are tying into to have better understanding. And I'm always interested in the thought after they finish watching it, how they respond to you.
Yeah, I think that the older generation, the elder generation, I should say, especially pre-1960s, was a very radical generation. Because for a lot of our parents, if any of them were of the radical tradition, then it was ending white supremacy. It wasn't negotiating with it, right? If they were of that sort of consciousness and revolution, today a person considers how can they negotiate with or integrate in, right? It was a completely different era of time of even when you study Japan, right? Post 1960s and, you know, what was going on with World War II and how there was this cultural exchange between blacks and Japanese at that time because they thought that the Japanese was going to help end the war, right? And take down white supremacy, even though they probably was more interested in imperialism and Pan-Asianism, Asia for them and them having control and power over the world. But at that time, we was focused on global allies, right? And we was focusing on how do we go to the root of this thing and dismantle it, right?
What are you really running from? That war that you think you're fighting ain't the real war. There are many wars that we go in different dimensions within self. The real wars are the inner world. It's the self wars.
People are always talking about our ancestors died for this and that, but we never talk about how our ancestors died for farming practices, right? We never talk about how our ancestors died for, you know, you go back to 1917, I believe, when they had the silent parade. And that's when they was protesting some injustices of some brothers that was killed by police officers. And they was explaining that, wait a minute, the way that we protest, we ain't got to say a word. We go show up and show you who we are. They had a list of all the things that they had done for this country. They said we were the first music that came to this country, right? They said that we were the first ones that was shedding blood when it came to the war, right? They were saying that we haven't tried any assassinations on the president, right? They were saying that we have 10,000 nurses here. We have clergymen. We have engineers. We have railroad workers. We have all of these different people. And then they had held up signs that said we have 50,000 or 500,000 acres of farmland worth 500 million, right? He's basically saying that, you know, the government's job is to provide opportunities and get our way because of all we've done for this country. But at the same time, we're here to save ourselves, right? And the protest felt like also something that we were speaking towards the rest of us, saying that this is what we have. This is what we can magnify. And we focus on governing ourselves versus getting something from this government that we know was never constructed for us in the first place. And I would imagine it's a very interesting dynamic because we now live at a time where a younger generation doesn't remember what it's like to live in a world without even having one black president. We've only had one throughout the history of America, right? We don't remember what it's like to have strategies before, of course, you know, integration or strategies outside of voting and things of that nature. And now we're at this time where we can see all of this wasted energy constantly pledging to a system that now that same system is telling you, get out there and get it on your own. You get all the way up here being a Democrat only to get to the Republicans where you see a red shift. And the Republicans is like, get it on your own merit. You should have listened to your ancestors. They said do for self. You should have been doing for self. America's a land of opportunity, but are you willing to take it? Right? There's so many people waiting on social welfare from a system that creates a wedge between us loving each other. We was always supposed to look at our ancestors, number one, and realize what didn't they know, right? What did they know and what didn't they know? because you also don't want to build a blueprint off their own ignorance, off their ignorance. Like, I wouldn't want to be like my grandparents. No disrespect to them, right? Some of my great-grandparents, I would like to, because some of my great-grandparents were literally putting their money where their mouth was. They were funding cases in the Supreme Court, getting racist covenants overturned in America, focus on entrepreneurship and ownership to get off the slave ship. But this new age of elders, I'm not seeing that sage wisdom, right? That sage wisdom to where it feels like, yo, the roots have became firm and deep, right? And the things that you speak on, I can tell that you spent a lot of time reflecting. And now when I listen to you, I can get a depth of guidance from you. So where you speak in the ways of like, to be old is very powerful if you think of it like a tree. When a tree is old, it's majestic. We think of old and we think of frailty because we're insecure about life, right? We try to avoid death as if we're not supposed to walk into the next cycle. Life is just a bridge from one direction to the other. You do as much as you can while you're on that bridge, right? So that others that are passing by and see the signs of your life can have a great journey as they're going through their cycle. And I just want us to get back to a place of veneration and honor to understand who our ancestors were and not some one dimension of political spin that they give us to where we lose those practices of, you know, the rocking chair. We lose those practices of them actually sowing in spiritual wisdom and guidance and insight, right? We're not seeing that exchange anymore. So this generation to me is the youngest generation ever because they have exposure to all of this information, but not a lot of wisdom. This is the foundation to understand your journey into cryptocurrency. You want to be prepared for the future. And although you can make a lot of money in crypto, you can actually lose a lot as well. If you get it in just for FOMO, you don't have a strategy, you just gambling. This is one of my favorite strategies. But we're in that time where anybody can create their own money and their own economy. That means the corporations and even the banks and the governments themselves are actually jumping into it. This is that time now where you get prepared. You will have the tools to be able to go do this research on your own, find coins on your own, and understand crypto in a way that the big boys do right now. The game is here and it's real. And if you don't play in it, then you're going to be on the sidelines watching everybody else score. And I believe that this is why it's one of the most exciting times in history if you're smart and you playing the game.
Unlock infinite wealth strategies at highlevel.19keys.com/IWS.
So first of all, I got a last question, or two last questions. One of them has to do with your mother and one has to do with your father. And I guess they're both kind of one, if you will. I want to know, you just told me you recently lost your mother.
Yeah.
And for those who are going to go through loss, right? How are you dealing with grief and what are some words that you can share with somebody else that may be dealing with the same thing?
You know, grief will show up differently every day. And you have to work in tandem with your grief. But hopefully, if you've learned some things from your parents, it will prepare you for any situation. It's just been 6 months and you would think that I may respond differently.
Mm-hmm.
But I live a life wanting to have a better experience out of me and be aware of when Kelly has her highs and lows. So the advice I can give someone is please be aware that mourning happens. It does happen. And there are things you don't stuff. Live your life. I run toward my fear. And see, at first, I held my breath. I was there the hour that she died. I was there the last few minutes. She saw my first, I saw her last. It was just me in that room with the nurse. And when she took that last breath, what I said to my mother was, thank you. Thank you for everything you gave us. Thank you for everything that you taught us. And we will see you soon. I live my life the same way I lived it before that moment happened. And so what I can give someone is get to know yourself before stuff happens. You know, prepare on the front end so the back end don't feel so bad. It may not go, but you will experience loss. some form, but how you deal with it. See, it's not that we have lost. It's your cold get up game when it happens. So when it comes to her and him, but her, my advice would be to work with yourself. Please get to know who you are, because it'll break you. It can break you. So, you know, those times and that alone time that I was talking to you about and learning yourself, you need to be with yourself about some of those things that mentally roll around. And hopefully you're not turning to food or drugs or different things, because that'll never get rid of it. That'll never even help it. I've seen people do that. Bad things happen and they turn to bad things. This is a perfect time to think about a course correction and what they would want to see out of you. What did they see out of you? I know what my parents saw out of me because I wanted to know, because I asked them. So love yourself. And love is a behavior, so behave yourself.
That's deep. That's powerful.
You got one more question.
Yeah. Your father has one of the most famous court cases.
Yes.
Where he makes his claim of curing AIDS or HIV and many other things. Do you believe that your father cured AIDS and HIV?
I was there. This was in New York. The case happened. Funny you should say that. One of the things that I like my truths being my truths. I can't speak for any other family member, mothers, you know, nobody but Kelly. And what I'll tell you is, for those who were there, we went through that with him. It wasn't that he was trying to show people that, hey, I'm doing all this and I'm doing all this by myself. No, he wanted to show that nature can show up. Nature is just fine by itself. It needs not your help. And there was records for that. So what I went ahead and did, you know, living in Atlanta now, I got my lawyer to make sure that I got that whole court case. Do you know what a fight it was for me to get it? That is my Bible to my freedom of truth. According to my family, we talk about our ancestors, and you said those roots that you were talking about, our ancestors being those roots, that is the founding of my roots, because this is the body of work, of behavior, of what work does at that higher level. So I have that court case. I love that court case. And I'm grateful that my father walked through that journey, because he taught me how to walk. That's I keep it close to me. But when I got all those papers, it took us a while to fight to get it. It cost a little money to get it. But guess what? That's my truth. That is part of my legacy. So I love that court case.
Is that open to the public?
They can try to go get it, but it's going to take you a minute to get it.
Will you share it to the public?
I have shared it.
Oh, okay.
Like, so I did Invest Fest where, and when we were there, I brought it with me. I had it encased and I brought it so whoever walked by my booth saw it, because I wanted people to know that I'm very proud of it. If he wasn't my father, I'd still be proud of it. Me and him had that conversation. Would we still like each other? Would I still know you if you weren't my father? I think I would.
Yeah. Did y'all ever do shrooms together?
How did you know? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Couple of insiders.
No. Who you been talking to?
Got my sources.
Keys, wasn't nobody there. Was you there?
I was in the ethers.
We're not going to talk about that.
Okay. That's fine. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and I appreciate the conversation. I think, you know, we need more conversations about healing. It's we're in such a detriment and imbalance in society. We need more healers. We need more people that speak up, that step out there, that go against the traditional standards, right? And that are knowledgeable, that people trust, right? That can give people guidance through their process. Because a lot of the healings, you can give people and tell them what to eat and what to not to eat, but navigating the mind, navigating their traumas and their spirit, right? That's a completely different story. And then what I hear from you as I'm receiving you is that when people come to you, you help them navigate themselves, right? So that they can get out that place that requires them to be unhealthy, right? Because some places to stay in, the admission is sickness, right? But you get so comfortable in your sickness, you do all the things to stay here because this is actually where you're comfortable at, right? And when you talk about that courage, now you're giving people a completely new belief system to do something new. And on this side, there's energy, there's love, there's peace, there's enlightenment, right? So I hear that you're giving people the mindfulness of health, right? Not just the physical regiment. It's that emotional guidance. And so for me, that's what I hear as you and your type of healing as you deliver people from the darkness to light. So thank you.
Thank you for hearing me. You know, most women can't say to a man, "You hear me." I was heard today, and I thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here.
19 keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the God.
Okay, that question is general, and I'm going to answer it the best way I can. So, a full body detox on an adult is one that is it has to do with removing those things from the body's experience, such as the caffeine, the meat, the processed foods, the sugars, in a way that the body will understand. For some people, it needs to be done and cut out all the way right now because there may be a sickness or challenge going on. But when it comes to someone who's just trying to understand better things about their body, I tell them to take a journey of having the traditional diet that they're eating down to a liquid diet, down to just having your minerals and drinking water, because you need to take your body down to a process of getting rid of that. And now you're going to build it back up after those days are over. So it needs to be over time. Nothing should be stripped away overnight. So it needs to be at least a 5-day process of restricting and fasting and then nourishing and rebuilding on the other end. And that's removing those things that are not on that alkaline food list that we have at Sebi's Daughters. When it comes to children, children don't need detoxing. Children need a diet of love. They need an alkaline diet. Now, if the child has a challenge, such as there's a disease process going on, you literally need to just change one thing for another. The body is resilient when it first gets here. So depending on the child's situation, depends on which one they're going to tie into on that alkaline food list. So that's very important. Both of them need water. Both of them need rest. Everyone needs love. And I always tell people, watch the colors that you wear when you're going through a healing. Those are very important too. And the people you talk to. Okay, the first thing you want to know is that eczema comes from within. It's not a topical. This is what you see on the outside, the exterior of the skin when something on the inside is not right. You need to go get tested for all of your allergies. You need to go see what's going on because you are having a great challenge with your skin because there's something going on. It could be detergent. It could be your nervous system. It could be your hormone system. But I believe taking away food down to the alkaline list and then adding things back slowly, you'll start to see. But also, are you drinking enough water? Are you washing your clothes in something? It's like it could be just about anything. So you want to start definitely with your diet, but look at what your processes of washing your clothes, your bed, what you're sleeping on. But normally it's irritation in the blood that causes it. But here's some things that will set it off: dairy, high levels of sugar and caffeine, and alcohol. So you want to start with those things that cause a lot of acid buildup in your blood system. And for it to stay in there means that your kidneys need cleaning. So I would go all the way back to that detoxing and then work your way back. But you really need to know what's going on in your blood system. And sea moss is great for it because it's a mineralizer and a hydration. Soursop is also good. We carry those at Sebi's Daughters, but getting the natural form. Tell Jessica to keep praying for me because every day there's a challenge. When you live a life of a man who possibly died by some other man's hands, you are taking a legacy that could kill you, that you will die for your truth. So is there always a challenge? There's always a challenge. There's always people who deal in sickness who will always challenge you. But see, my love for people, my love for God reigns true. And so I'm going to stick with the truth. I believe what God has to offer us is for us, for everybody. So it's not just for me, it's for everybody. And if I'm going to be a messenger and I'm okay with the truth about what God gives me, then I'm okay with dying the way I am. Some of the challenges that come with it is it's a lonely road some days. Not everybody finds this message to still be popular. So it's not something that you can always share. So at those times, I make sure that I have my cheerleaders. I make sure I iron, sharpen iron with those who know me and who can encourage me through God's word, through God's food. So I'm always looking when it gets rough. I never sit by myself too long unless necessary. Love everyone because we're all sick. Find your way, and see, loving doesn't mean in one way. Learn how to love people where they are. Love them where they are. Be honest with that. Just love them where they are because we are all sick. Be aware of that they need love, and so do you, because we've lost that light. So loving a person because we're all sick is the best advice my father ever gave me. So people will talk to you in sickness. They will fight you in sickness. They will do so many things in sickness. Just know that it is sickness that we're fighting. It is not the person. If we were all healers and we were all kind and we were all passionate about each other, man, I want to see that day. I want to see a day where we all respect God's goodness. We would all appreciate what God gave us, because see, that's what the Sebi way is, to appreciate what God put down here and know that it's enough. And if we could all feel that it's enough, then that love would dignify all of us and we would be amazing. Be patient with yourself, to be honest with yourself, and that starts the healing. Be patient and be honest. Those are two very difficult things, and it'll take a minute, but you can get there, and that's where you have to start. Listen, if you're gonna eat junk, I don't expect you to say anything holy to me. If you are going to abuse yourself, you are definitely going to abuse me. I need you to right align yourself so that you can course correct me in a way that takes both of us into a future that is so beautiful, that's full of light and positivity. And we're going to take that light and touch 2 other people, and then it's going to be contagious. So that all came from your kitchen. So be careful of what you put in your kitchen.
I think it's the approach in healing in a feminine way, because healing is feminine, I think. And as I listen to her, like I was saying, like when I hear her approach healing, it's like how a gardener approaches it. It's like, for me, sometimes I want like straight direct answers because that's my logical towards mind, but hers is more so watering things, right? And getting things to a realignment and flow, which is healing itself, right? I think she speaks on it consistently in a very holistic nature, right? Because I think that's what healing is. I think a lot of times when we become sick, there's an emotional disruption that happens somewhere where there's, the structure breaks down, the integrity of who we are, our energetic fields, whatever it may be. And then there's a trickle effect. And so as a man, like, you approach healing with take this, do this, do this. But as a woman, it's more so, let's slow down. Let's find out where you are first. And then let's move forward, and let's not backtrack to where we was, but let's go forward to where we should have always been. So I like how she kept reiterating that, healing is something that we do with our perspectives of the world and our perspective of ourselves and the awareness that we have within. Kellie Bowman shows how Dr. Sebi has produced seeds of a generation that will continue to be healers in this world. Not only is she a nurse, but she also has the holistic practices of her father, and she utilizes that in real time. And you have people that come to her for that advice. He literally created messengers of light. He literally created healers that now go out in the world. And as we go into this new phase of, scientific paradigms and health and wellness and biohacks, she's living in the time that her father had prepared because he was ahead of his time. So it's beautiful to see healers on time where people can actually hear them. And I feel like the legacy of healers is so important because it's the first phase of reparations for any people. Cellular repair, trauma repair, right? Emotional repair. Like, I think that it's so powerful what Dr. Sebi left behind. He left behind 20 plus kids with the courage, right, to go out there and try to heal the world like their father did.
The 19 keys, the execution of knowledge is power.
Teach me how to be a god.
From a boy to a man, and ultimately back to the natural state of being and to a god.
When you're on that good coffee, man, ideas just come to you. Your mind just gets supercharged and you don't get sleepy, you're not tired, you're ready to go. You got that focus amplified, especially for the people that got that ADHD and they tired of taking that Adderall that make them wake up in the morning and they feel extra emotional. Why Supermind? Because regular coffee don't cut it. And who wants a regular mind? Supermind, mental, energy, focus.